Hi guys, welcome to another video, and this is for Functional Skills Level 2 Past Paper 3. If you're part of my class, you can find these in Google Classroom, or if you're not part of my class, you can find these in the link below. As always, I'd appreciate if you hit the like button, hit the bell button, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. So let's have a look at Section A, Non-Calculator. Question 1. Kate is making some pastry. She will use 20 ounces of flour. Kate has a recipe that uses 8 ounces of flour with 3 ounces of butter. Work out how many ounces of butter Kate needs to use for 3 marks. So hopefully you've noticed this is definitely to do with ratio and proportion. So we can use this information that they said here, where 8 ounces of flour, in fact I'll put flour here and I will put butter here. Yep, so 8 ounces of flour uses 3 ounces of butter. Okay, so she will use 20 ounces of flour. So 20 needs to go underneath this section here where you've got flour. But I can't go straight from 8 to 20 in one step. I definitely need a step in between. So what I'm thinking is, let's work out, because it's non-calculator, I'm not going to work out what 1 ounce is, because if I do this, which I wouldn't recommend, to go from this to this, you're going to have to divide by 8, and then you're going to have to divide by 8 on this side as well. And without the calculator, I wouldn't recommend doing 3 divided by 8, you'd be there quite a while. So instead of doing it this way, let's do 4 ounces instead, because to get from 8 to 4, all you do is just halve it. So if I halve 3, which is much easier now, so half of 3 is just 1.5 or 1.5. And let me just move the screen down a little bit. We want 20 ounces for flour. So to get from this to this, what you could do is, how many 4s go into 20? Hopefully you should know that's 5 times. So you'll have to multiply by 5 on that side, times by 5 on that side. And if you're not sure how to do that, you could just do 1.5 times by 5 on the side. So 5 times 5 is 25. Put the 5 carry the 2. 1 5 is 5 plus the 2 is 7. And it's 1 decimal place for your answer. So that's going to be 7.5 ounces for your answer. Yeah, and let's put that in the answer box as well. Yeah, so obviously you'll get 2 marks for your working, 1 mark for your answer, 3 marks in total. Well, let's move on to the next question. Question 2a says, work out the value of 4x plus 3 when x equals 2. So hopefully you know that you just have to replace wherever it says x with whatever they're saying. So we've still got the 4, and instead of x now, I'm going to put it in brackets in fact. So x is now 2, and we still have plus 3. Yep. And again, hopefully when it's side by side like this, there is an invisible multiply sign there. So that's 4 times 2, which is 8. Still got the plus 3. And using and now there's only one thing left to do, 8 plus 3, which is 11. Yep, so that should be your answer. If you get any other answer apart from 11, obviously that would be wrong. Then it says, here is a formula, a equals 5 square root b. Part B says, work out the value of a when b is 16. So let's replace the b here with a 16. Yeah, and hopefully you know what this symbol means, the square root, which is the opposite of square. So obviously if you know your square numbers, you're going to know your square roots as well. Let me just go up in my square numbers, in fact, on the side, so just to show you guys. So 1 squared literally means 1 times 1, which is 1. 2 squared, which is 2 times 2, which is 4. 3 squared, 3 times 3, which is 9. 4 squared, 4 times 4, which is 16, and so on. So the opposite of that, so the square root of 16, for example, will be 4. So there's your answer for the square root of 16. So now we can say a equals 5, and again there's an invisible multiply sign right there. Now we can say the square root of 16 is 4, and there's only one thing left to do, 5 times 4, which is obviously 20. Yep, so again, if you don't get 20 as your answer, you know, it will be wrong. You'll get 1 mark for your working, for showing the 4, and obviously your second mark is for the answer. Question 3a, work out 5/8 of 320 for 2 marks. So when you do a fraction of an amount, you always divide by the bottom, or the denominator in this case, that's what we call the bottom of the fraction, and multiply by the numerator. So let's do 320 divided by 8. I'm going to have to do it this way without the calculator. So 8 into 3 doesn't go. 8 into 32 goes exactly 4 times, and there's a 0 there, so we have to put a 0 here as well. So that's 1/8 equal to 40, but we don't want 1/8, we want 5/8. So 5/8 will be 5 times 40. And you could do it this way if you want to. 0 times 5 is 0. 4 times 5 is 20. So there's your answer, 200. Let's put that in the answer box. So the answer is 200, 5/8 of 320. I know some people like to multiply first and then do the division. You could do that if you want to. You'll get the same answer. But me personally, I like to do the division first, because you're left with smaller numbers, and they're easier to work with. Yep, 2 marks for that one. Then it says, Kanya makes and sells jewellery items. In 1 week she sells earrings, bracelets and necklaces in the ratio 13 to 24 to 15. What fraction of the total items sold were bracelets? Give your answer in its simplest form. Let me just highlight some key words. So they did mention total, and obviously we want fraction as well, and its simplest form as well. So we're going to have to simplify. Let's write this ratio down first. 13, 24 to 15. So the 13 represents earrings. 24 is the bracelets. And the 15 represents necklaces. Yeah, because that's the order that they said. What they're asking for, what fraction of the total items sold were bracelets? Well, bracelets is 24. Let me just circle that. We need the total because they're talking about the total. So it's going to be 24 out of the total. So we're going to have to add, and do it on the side here, 13 plus 24 plus 15. We're going to have to do it like a big sum. 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 5 is 12. Put the 2, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 2 is 4, plus the 1 is 5. So it's out 52, that's your total right there. So my fraction looks like 24 out of 52. So we're going to have to simplify that, because they said give your answer in its simplest form. Just double check what goes into these. You could do 2 if you wanted to. There is a quicker way, which I'll show you in a minute. So if you just halve 24, half of 24 is 12, half of 52 is 26, I believe, and then maybe halve it again. That's going to be 6 at the top and 13 at the bottom. And you can't simplify any more, so that is your final answer. So you're going to have to put 6 in the top, 13 at the bottom. There is your final answer. There was a quicker way. You could have done, like this was our fraction, and you could have divided by 4 to both top and bottom. Obviously, when you're dividing both top and bottom, it has to be the same. Notice you can't have different numbers here. Obviously, you'll get the same answer, 6 out of 13. And if you're not sure, you can obviously do the bus stop method if you're not sure how many 4s go into 52. Yeah, but it should be exactly 13 for the denominator. So you get 1 mark for your answer, and obviously 1 mark for your working out as well. Let's move on to the next question. Question 4. Paul sees this advert for a payment plan for a laptop. The laptop payment plan, the normal price £240, pay deposit of £36 and £15 a month for 12 months. Use our payment plan and save 8% of the normal price. Part A says, does using the payment plan save 8% of the normal price? You must show you're working. 5 marks for part A. Wow. There is a part B as well, which I'll come to in a minute. So for me, obviously it's to do with percentage, and they're talking about well, it's a saving of 8% of the normal price. Well, this is the normal price right there, £240. So there's a couple of ways you could do this. Let's put down, let me just put some information down here. So this is the normal price. Normal price is £240. Okay, we're trying to compare it with the payment plan. So if you use the payment plan, how much is that going to cost? Well, you have to pay a deposit of £36 and £15 a month for 12 months. So you're going to have to work out this bit here first, £15 a month for 12 months. So we're going to have to do 15 times by 12. I like to multiply like this. 5 times 2 is 10. Put 0, carry the 1. 1 times 2 is 2, plus the 1 is 3. Then put 0 down, and then, because you can think of this as a 1 now, as opposed to a 10. 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. Let's add these together. Let me just move the screen down. 3 plus 5 is 8. That's a 1. Okay. So the payment plan, £180 plus a deposit of £36 as well. So we're going to have to add £36 to 180. Gives us a price of 8 plus 3 is 11. Carry the 1. £216 for the payment plan. So remember, this was the normal price. This is the payment plan. Okay, so they're saying, does using the payment plan save 8% of the normal price? So there's 2 ways you can do this. Let me show you one way. You could do 8% of the normal price, which is 240. Without the calculator, I probably wouldn't do it this way. I'd probably do 10% first. So 10% of 240 is £24. And then you could do 1%, which is £2.40. So 8%, let me just move the screen down. 8% will be 8 times that. So 0 times 8 is 0. 4 8s are 32. carry the 3. 2 4s is 16 plus the 3 is 19. You got 2 decimal places for your answer. So that is actually 8% of the normal price, which is £19.20. What did they say? Does the payment plan save 8%? So the saving is the difference between the normal price and the payment plan. So we're going to have to compare this 8% that they're talking about with the difference between the normal price and the payment plan. The difference between them, we're going to have to take away. So 240 take away, what was it, 216, yeah. Let's put that there, take these away. This will tell us the saving. 0 take away 6 I can't do, so let's borrow. 10 take away 6 is 4, 3 take away 1 is 2, 2 take away 2 is nothing, so that's a saving of £24, which is not the same as £19.20, so that's no. Yep, and there's your proof that 8%, what do they say? Does using the payment plan save 8% of the normal price? No, it doesn't. Because obviously £24 is not the same as £19.20. So therefore it's a no. Yeah, that's one way of doing it. You could use percentage change if you wanted to. That's another way of doing it, because there's your change. It's gone from 240 to 216. And then you can compare that with the, obviously you'll get your answer as a percentage, and then you can compare it with the 8%. So, in fact, let me do it that way as well. I'll do it at the bottom here. So, this is another way. So, obviously, hopefully you know that percentage change is change over original times by 100. Well, the change was 240. Take away the 216, which we worked out before. Original is what it was originally. Well, that's 240, the normal price, times by 100. So that gives you, well, the difference we worked out before here was 24 out of 240 times by 100. That simplifies to 1/10, doesn't it? Because that 24 goes to that once. 24 goes into that 10 times. So 1/10 of 100 is actually 10%, which is obviously not the same as 8%. So again, that is a no. Yep, so 2 different ways of doing that. In the second method here, you're comparing the percentages, and obviously it's a no because they're not the same. In the first method, we're comparing the savings, and obviously it's a no for that as well. So whichever way you do that question makes no difference. Obviously, without the calculator, you're gonna have to find a way that's easy for you. I probably wouldn't do it this way where I was talking about 8% of 240 and work that out. I know a lot of people do like doing it this way and trying to simplify and so on. Me personally, without the calculator, I like this 10% method. Work out 10% first. Use that as your building block. You can work out any percentage it's asking for. So obviously 8% you can work out very easily. Pretty much no time at all. So that's 5 marks. Whichever method you show, whether it's method 1 or 2. I'm sure there are other ways as well. You know, I will include the mark scheme. I think these 2 are the most common ways of doing this question, but there are other ways as well. So do check the mark scheme as well, just in case. Let's have a look at part B. Part B says, use estimation to check your calculation for the cost of the payment plan. It's a key word. Estimation to check your calculation for the cost of the payment plan. Well, let me just recheck. Let me just go back to the question. Where was this, the cost of the payment plan? So the cost of the payment plan was here when we got £216. That was the cost of the payment plan. So Obviously, keyword estimation, when it says estimation, you can't use your numbers as they are. You're going to have to round them. And in this case, what I would probably do is 15, you could call that 20 if you want to, or you could leave it as 15. Let me just check. Yeah, do you know what? I'm gonna round that to the nearest 10. So 15, let's call that 20. And for 12, let's call that 10. And instead of 36, which we're going to add later on, let's call that 40 to the nearest 10 as well. So 20 times by 10, let me write this down. So let's do 20 times by 10, which is 200. And obviously 200 plus 40, which is 240, which is roughly equal to what we said before. It's a little bit far from 216. So what I'd probably do is, let me just go back to my answer. Where is it? I'd probably change it then. Okay, instead of 20, let's leave that as 15. Obviously that will make 150 here. And then add the 150 with the 40, that will give you 190. That's a little bit better. Yeah, so it's a little bit closer to 216, which was the answer before for the payment plan. You could have used 20. I just think maybe 15 is probably a little bit better. And I believe in the mark scheme it does accept this answer as well. So that's one way of doing it. Or you could work backwards. So obviously working backwards, instead of 216, you could say 220, take away 40, gives you 180, and then the opposite of multiply is divide. So you could do 180 divide by 10 gives you £18, which is roughly equal to the £15 that they mentioned in the question. So two ways of doing that. You can either work forwards the normal way, or you can work it out backwards. Obviously you'd have to use your rounded numbers because it does say estimation. Yep, so I'd probably do it. This second way is actually pretty good. Actually, I like that. That's a good way of doing it, and you get pretty close to the original number. So that's section A done. Let's move on to section B, which is the calculate paper. So this is section B. Obviously we can use our calculator for this one, and I'd probably recommend using a scientific calculator for any of these level 2 papers, especially in your exam. Well, let's have a look at the first question. Question 1. The scatter diagram shows the temperature at different heights on Mount Everest for one afternoon in May. So you've got temperature along this side, and you've got height for the horizontal axes. Okay. Describe the relationship shown in this scatter diagram for 1 mark, and hopefully you know if it's going from left to right and it's going down like this, from left to right, that will be a negative correlation. Yep, for 1 mark. Then it says there are camps on Mount Everest. Base Camp A is at a height of 5,400 meters. Camp 3 is at a height of 7,500 meters. Use the scatter diagram to work out the difference in temperatures between the 2 camps. So let's just have a look at this scatter diagram. So we're going to need 5,400 meters for Camp A and 7,500 meters for Camp 3. Okay, so obviously we're going to need a line of best fit first. Obviously you can't answer this question without a line of best fit, so this is a very common mistake. A lot of people trying to guess what the answer is just by going down from the graph and reading it across. It's virtually impossible to do that without a line. So I'm going to draw my line. The idea behind it is you want a straight line that roughly goes through most of these points, and you want an equal number of crosses on either side. So give me 2 seconds, I'm going to draw my line and show you what my line looks like in a minute. So there's my line. I'm not really 100% happy with that, to be honest. So I'm about 99% happy, I would say. I mean, it's the best I could do. So hopefully yours looks very similar. Notice that, you know, there is maybe a little bit of a outlier here that's causing a few problems, but you know, generally it is going through most of those points, and it's a decent line. So now it said Camp A was at 5,400 meters. So let me just double check these little tiny little squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 little squares between 0 and 2,000. So that means it's going up by 200 each time, isn't it? So each little increment is 200 meters. So therefore, if you want 5,400, well, 5,000 is going to be halfway between 4,600. So 5,000 is actually where that cross is. Can you see where that cross is on the diagram? They've actually put 5,000 right there. So that means 5,400 will be right there for Camp A. And what you'll have to do is draw a dotted line going down, and where you hit your line you'll have to go across. So there's mine. As you can see, it's exactly on a bit dodgy line. In fact, let me redraw that and show you guys properly. There you go. So hopefully you can see it's on exactly. If you read it across, again, each of these little squares going down now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is a single digit, isn't it? So 1, 2, 3 down, that's going to give me a reading of -3, where that line is. Yes, there's my answer for Camp A. So obviously your line might be slightly different to mine. You might get a slightly different answer. So you know, if you got around -3, you know, that is absolutely fine. If you didn't get anywhere near that, then you know, probably redraw your line of best fit, and just recheck the scale as well. Just make sure you're reading it from the right place. Okay, and then for Camp 3, let me just double check. What did it say? Camp 3 was at a height of 7,500. So again, 7,500. Well, if that's 6,000, that's 8,000. 7,000 is going to be halfway, which is there. So 7,500 is going to be halfway again, which is right there. Yeah, that's going to be Camp 3. Again, I'm going to draw my line and go straight across. Yep, so there's my dotted lines, and as you can see, it's exactly on. That's going to make it -16 for Camp 3. So we need the difference between -3 and -16. So you could count the number of jumps, or count the number of squares between them. That's a good way. In fact, let me do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 jumps between them two temperatures. So I reckon the answer is going to be 13 for me, and it will be a positive answer, because obviously it's the difference between two temperatures, which will always be positive. So just be careful. If you put a negative answer, it would be wrong. So in my situation, my answer is 13 degrees C. That's the difference between them. You could work out if you want to. So obviously the bigger one is -3, takeaway, difference means takeaway between two numbers. I'm going to put the other one in brackets, minus 16. Yeah, and a minus and a minus in the middle, hopefully you know that changes to a plus. And still got this, and now the 16 is a plus. And if you use the number line, or if you can work that out, you could think of it as 16 take away 3, which is the same thing as 13 degrees C. Yeah, so you could work out if you wanted to, or you can just count the number of squares between them. Either way, you're going to get the same answer. It's definitely, for mine anyway, it's definitely 13 degrees C. Yep, hopefully you got something similar as well. If you've got 14 or 15, if you've got 12, then that's absolutely fine. So they will give you a bit of leeway in the exam. So yeah, if you got roughly that answer, absolutely fine. Well, let's move on to the next question. Question 2 says, Jenny is an editor for a newspaper. She checks information in an article. The article states in 2019 there were 300 people per square kilometre in the UK. Jenny knows that in 2019 the area of the UK was 242,500 square kilometres. The population of the UK was 66.9 million. Is the statement in the article correct? Show why you think this. For 2 marks. Wow, okay. So it's definitely a division type question, because you've got, she said that there were 300 people per square kilometre. So it's number of people divided by number of kilometres. So well, we got this many people and we got this many kilometres. So there's a couple of ways you could do this. We're going to have to change the 66.9 million to numbers, definitely. So let me just change 66.9 million equals, let me just draw the jumps. I think it's going to be 66 million. So that means it's going to be 6 jumps to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is right there. Remember there was a 9 here as well initially. So that's a 0 there. That's a 0, 0, 0, and another 0. So that's going to give you, how do we say that number? Literally 66,900,000. Yeah, so that's how we say that number. Okay. And the area of the UK was 242,500. So what we can do is see how many of these 242,500 go into the 66,900,000, and it should be roughly about 300. Let's double check. So 66,900,000, and obviously you're going to use your calculator for this. You can't use estimation because it didn't say that. Divided by 242,500. So this is one way of doing it. So in your calculator, if you type that in 66, 9, how many zeros? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. Divided by 242,500. That gives me, ooh, interesting. It gives me 275.876. So that's people per kilometers squared. So what did she say? She said she thinks that there are 300 people per square kilometre in the UK. Yeah, she's pretty close. Yeah, so I would say yes for that. Yep, so I would say yes. Yep, I mean, if she was nowhere near the 300 people per kilometre squared, then I'd definitely say no. But yeah, that's pretty close. To the nearest 100, that does give you 300. So I would say yes for that, definitely. And then it says for part B, use the reverse calculation to show check of your answer. So because it says this, you have to work backwards. So I'll have to start with my answer, 275. And I did round it as well, 0.875. I'm going to have to use my rounded answer. And working backwards, I will have to multiply by this number here, 242,500. So on my calculator, I'll just keep it as it is. I've still got my answer on my calculator, in fact. So I'm going to times that by 242,500. Yeah, it does give me exactly the same as before, 66,900,000. Yep, so there's your answer, and it does work. For 1 mark, obviously you have to show the original number, which was the 66,900,000 in the original question. Let's move on to the next question. Question 3. Wesley is a salesman. He wants to work out the total cost of the petrol he will use for travel next week. Wesley knows he will drive a total of 520 miles. His car uses 1 gallon of petrol per 28 miles. Petrol costs 128.4 pence per litre. 1 gallon equals 4.55 litres. Wesley thinks the petrol he will use for travel next week will cost more than £100. Is Wesley correct? Show why you think this for 4 marks. So a lot of information in this one. You're going to have to break this down and just work out bit by bit. There's going to be quite a few bits that you're going to convert. I think there will be quite a lot of conversions in this one. So which one should we do first? Well, he will drive a total of 520 miles. You're going to have to change the miles to gallons, and then gallons to litres, and then litres to pence or pounds. Well, pence first and then to pounds. And then you can compare it with the £100 here. Yes, that's the plan. So let's change the miles to gallons. So I'm going to use this one first. So what I'd like to do is, let's write 1 gallon equals 28 miles. That's what we're told. How many miles did he travel? He will drive a total of 520 miles. So I'm going to put that here. Okay, so how do you get from this to this? Because that's the way we're going. We're going that way. And obviously to get from 28 to 1, I'm looking at the numbers now, you will have to go from a big number to a small number. Definitely divide by 28. So I'll have to divide by 28 here as well. So on my calculator, 520 divided by 28 gives me, okay, it looks a bit weird. Let's go with it though. Let's put down 18.57 gallons roughly. I had to round it a little bit, so I'll use 18.57. I wouldn't round it too much because obviously your final answer will be slightly off. So let's use 18.57 gallons. And now changing gallons to litres, let's use this one. Let me write down here 1 gallon equals 4.55 litres. And obviously we've got 18.57 gallons. So we're going this way. So again, I'm looking at the numbers. I'm going from 1 to 4.55. So that is small to big. That's definitely multiply by 4.55. So I'll have to do the same here as well. I tell you what, you know, because I've still got my answer on my screen, I'm just going to multiply that by 4.55. I'm not going to round it. that gives me exactly 84.5 litres if you've done that right. I want to be as accurate as possible, you know, and they will accept this as your answer. So obviously, let's use this as our litres now, 84.5 litres, which is really accurate. And now I need to change the litres to pence, so I'm going to choose this one. And it says 128.4 pence per litre. So for every litre, let me write this down, 1 litre equals 128.4 pence. Yeah, just be careful you don't think of this as pounds. It's definitely just pence at the moment. We've got this many litres, 84.5. I'm going to write that here on that side. So again, we're going this way, and again I'm looking at the number, just the numbers. So I'm going from 1 to 128.4, definitely multiply, because you're going from small to big, times by 128.4. So let's times that by 128.4. So if you've still got your answer on your screen, which I have, I'm just going to times that by 128.4, which gives me 10849.8 pence, which looks a bit unusual, but obviously this is in pence. We're going to have to change that to pounds. So hopefully you know that there's 100 pence in a pound, so you're going to have to divide that by 100. And again, you could do that on the calculator if you wish. That's going to give you 108 pounds, and to the nearest pence I would say that is 50 pence. Yeah, if you round it, because it was 498. So to the nearest pence, 108 pounds and 50 pence. There's my final answer. What did he say? I think we got pretty close to what he was saying. He said, or he thinks, the petrol he will use for travel next week will cost more than £100, and it is, yeah, it is more than £100. It's actually £108 50 pence. So you could say 108.50 is greater than 100. So yes, there's your final answer, and that'll get you, how many marks was it? 4 marks for doing that. I really like this way of converting from one unit to another. It's a really good way of doing it. If you're not sure, or if you tend to get confused, is it multiply, is it divide, it's a really good way of changing from one unit to another. Yeah, and that'll get you 4 marks. Let's move on to the next question. Question 4. Anwar makes a playhouse for his children. Okay, the front elevation of the playhouse has one line of symmetry. So they're showing you there is the front elevation. Can you see with the arrow? Is that bit there? Draw the front elevation of the playhouse on the grid. Use the scale 1 to 20. Wow. Okay. So obviously on the grid we have to draw just the front elevation, which is that bit there. So it'll be a rectangle and a triangle on top of it. So this scale, let me just have a look at this scale, 1 to 20. So obviously 1 is on the map, 20 is in real life. So these figures here in the diagram, they are in real life in essence, because obviously 100 centimeters is quite big, 130 centimeters, that's quite big as well in real life. Yeah, so these are your figures in real life. So the map is obviously going to be 20 times smaller, so we're going to have to divide these by 20. Yeah, so I'm going to need this 100 centimeters divided by 20, which will tell me exactly 5 squares. In fact, what I'll do, I'll just put 5 there. Yep. So that's 5 squares going across for the bottom. Divide that by 20 as well. So 130, you can do that on the calculator, divide by 20. That's 6.5 squares from top to bottom. Okay. This bit here is the same as 110. So 110 divided by 20. This will tell me the height of the rectangle. So 110 divided by 20, which is 5.5. Interesting. Okay. So if that's 5.5, that's 6.5. This here, the height of the triangle must be the difference between 6.5 and 5.5. That's exactly 1 square. Yeah. So the height of the triangle, even though it doesn't look like it from the diagram, from this diagram here, that will actually be a very, very short height of just 1 square. Yeah. So let's start drawing this then. So on the grid, the first thing I would do is the 5 squares across. I'll do that somewhere at the bottom. So I'm going to use my funny thing. Obviously you guys use a pencil and a ruler when you do this, so if you give me a few seconds I will show you what mine looks like in a minute. So there's my finished answer. As you can see, obviously you've got 5 along the bottom, and then you go 5.5 up, so I had to stop the rectangle there, 5.5 squares up, and then go across. There's your rectangle done. And then for the triangle, all I did was go up 1 square. So obviously you're going to stop here, halfway between this grid here, because that is exactly 1 square anyway. You know, and you can double check as well. If you do from top to bottom, remember they said it was 6.5 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5, and it is for the height from top to bottom. So your answer should look something like this. Obviously it doesn't look anything like the original what they said, because obviously they didn't draw it to scale, but yours will be to scale here. Yeah. So yeah, don't be put off by this very small triangle. You know, you are doing it correctly. So yeah, there's your answer. How many marks was that? 3 marks in total just for doing that. Yep, and you don't need to put any measurements or anything, just draw the front elevation. That's good enough. Let's move on to the next question. Question 5. In October, Mr. Barker gave a group of 250 students a history test. These are the results. So you got number of marks and you got frequency as well. Mr. Barker estimates the mean mark to be 12. Part A says, is Mr. Barker correct? Show why you think this for 3 marks. So hopefully you've noticed this is obviously to do with estimating the mean. And what they've done here is they're kind of like telling you need to fill these blanks here in this table. So you've got 3rd column and you've got 4th column. And obviously the quick way is you would have to multiply across and get the total of your frequency, the total number of people who took the history test in total, or total number of marks actually for everyone who took the history test, divided by how many people there that took the history test in the first place, should get your mean for this question. So obviously at the moment we can't multiply across because I can't do 1 to 5 times by 20. It doesn't make sense. So the 3rd column has to be midpoint. Yeah, because you're going to need the midpoint of 1 to 5, or halfway between 1 to 5. And if you're not sure, what you do is you add them two together and halve it, which is obviously 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Yeah, so you should get 3 for that one. And if you do the same for the rest, 6 to 10, halfway between that is 8. 11 to 15, halfway between that is 13. 16 to 20, halfway between that is 18. Yeah, and if you're not sure, do what I did here. I think it's a really good idea to do this, in fact, for the first one. Whenever you get this type of question, always recheck what is the midpoint between these two values. Yeah. So now we can multiply across. So this is frequency times midpoint. Let's call it for the fourth column. That times that, that times that, that times that, and that times that. So 20 times by 3, obviously 60. 50 times by 8 should be 400. 120 times by 13 is 1560. And then 60 times by 18 is 1080. Okay, so we need a total for this fourth column. That'll tell me the total number of marks for everyone. So 60 plus 400 plus 1560 plus 1080. That gives me exactly 3,100. And I need a total number of the people who took the test. Well, it does say in the question, or you can just add total number of frequency here. If you add these together, you should get 250. That goes there. So let me just move the screen down. Estimate for the mean is 3,100, total number of marks for everyone, divided by how many people were there? 250. Well, let's work that on the calculator. 3,100 divided by 250 gives us, as a decimal, 12.4 if you've done it correctly. So what did he say? So Mr. Barker estimates the mean mark to be 12. Oh, he's pretty close, you know. Obviously, he's not exactly right, but obviously, don't forget, it is an estimate. So I would say yes for that one. I mean, if we had an answer of, let's say 20 or anything like that, you know, nowhere near 12, then I would say no. But he's pretty close, so I would say yes for that. Yep. So obviously, you get 2 marks for your working and 1 mark for saying yes. So that's part A done. Let's move on to part B. Part B says, in the October test, the lowest mark was 2 and the highest mark was 17. In November, the same students took a similar test, lowest mark was 5, highest mark was 18. Mr. Barker wants to write a statement comparing the spread of marks, let me just highlight that bit there, in the 2 tests. Write a statement to compare the spread of marks in the 2 tests. You must show calculations to support your statement for 2 marks. Or when it's talking about spread of the data, or spread of marks in this case, definitely to do with range. Yep. So you need a range which is, biggest value, take away the smallest value. Yeah, you don't need to write this down, but I'm just showing you guys, for those of you who are not sure, or if you've forgotten, obviously we need the biggest one, take away the smallest one. So let's work out October range. So for October, the biggest one was 17. Take away the lowest one, which was 2, which obviously is 15. And then let's work out the November range. And November, highest mark was 18. And the lowest mark was 5, which is 13. So what did he say? Mr. Barker wants to write a statement comparing this. Oh, right, so you just have to compare them. Write a statement to compare the spread of the marks in the 2 tests. So I would probably say the range for the marks in October was bigger than the range of marks in November. Yeah, so you can say the range for marks in October of marks in November. And you could mention which one is more consistent. So if it was bigger in October, that means it's less consistent than November. So therefore, the marks in October were less consistent. That's good enough for 2 marks. Or you could say, you know, the marks in November were more consistent. Obviously, the opposite of that. So something along these lines is absolutely fine. And obviously, you do have to show you're working like it says. You must show calculations to support your statement. And obviously, you do have to write a statement as well, some kind of sentence to explain the spread of the data. Yeah, so you'll get 1 mark for your working, 1 mark for your statement. There's your 2 marks. Let's move on to the next question. Question 6. Mia is the manager of an ice cream shop. In August, she sold 960 ice lollies. In September, she sold 810 ice lollies. Mia thinks she sold 18% fewer ice lollies in September than in August. Did Mia sell 18% fewer ice lollies in September than in August? 3 marks for this question. So if you hopefully you've noticed that there is obviously to do with percentage, and also there's a change happening in this question as well. Can you see it's gone from 960 sold to 810 sold? So what I would do, I would use the percentage change formula, which hopefully you know is change, or the difference, over the original times by 100, so that you get your answer as a percentage. So you definitely need to know this formula. They're not going to tell you in the exam, and I would use it for any type of question like this where you can see that change happening. It's gone from one number to another, talking about the same thing, and obviously they're talking about percentage as well. In this case, 18% fewer in this case. So what I would do first is work out the change or the difference between 960 and 810. So let's do on the calculator 960 take away 810. That gives me 150. So that's the change or the difference. And now we can put that in the formula. So the change, which was 150, over the original, let's just double check what it was originally. Well, August comes first, that's what it was originally, so 960, that goes at the bottom of your fraction, and then you just times by 100. Let's see what we get. So 150 divided by 960 times 100. So on my calculator, I get 15.625, and that's going to be in percent, even though it doesn't say on your calculator. We know our answer is as a percentage. So it's actually 15 and a bit percent fewer, actually. That's how much it's decreased by. So now we can compare that with the 18%. So she thinks she sold 18% fewer, and obviously it's not, it's actually 15% fewer. So that's a no. So let's put that in the answer box. There you go. So yeah, this is the best way of doing this type of question. There are other ways as well, but I probably recommend doing it this way. It's quick and easy, especially if you can see that change happening. Definitely use percentage change. 3 marks for that question. Let's move on to the next one. Question 7. Alex has 2 sets of 4 cards. He writes a number on each card. Alex picks 1 card from each set and multiplies the number to get a score. Table shows some of the scores. Okay, so notice some of these are negative numbers. Complete the table for 2 marks. So if you multiply the scores, Hopefully you've seen this kind of thing before. It's not a two-way table. This is what we call a sample space diagram. And you've got all the outcomes in the middle here. So you've got card 1 along the top, card 2 along the side here, and all the outcomes are here. So for example, -5 times 2 gives you -10. That's why there's a -10 there. 7 times 2 gives you 14, and so on. So we have to fill in the blanks. So -9 times by 2, a negative times a positive gives me a negative, and 9 times 2 is 18. And you could use your calculator for this because this is on the calculator paper, but you can most likely do these in your head. It's only 2 marks, so you know, definitely I would do this in my head. -5 times 4, that's going to give me -20. 11 times 4, that's 44. -6 times -9, so minus times a minus gives me positive. 6 times 9 is 54. 11 times -6, that's -66 for that one. -9 times 8, that's -72. And 11 times 8, that is 88. That goes there. Yep, so as long as you fill in the blanks, you should get these answers, and that'll get you 2 marks. Then it says, Alex says, the probability that the score is negative is 0.5, which means there is a 5% chance that the score is negative. Alex is incorrect. Explain why. So, yeah, that doesn't sound right, does it, at all? How can 0.5 be the same as 5%? So what I would say in this case, well, they've definitely said that Alex is incorrect, so you can't say that he's correct because he's not. You have to explain why. And the reason here is, I would say, you know, obviously 0.5 is not the same as 5%. 0.5 is equal to 50%, not 5%. Yep, something along those lines is absolutely fine. So as long as you mention that, obviously 0.5 is not the same as 5%, and you can just say what it should be. So obviously it should be 50%. That's absolutely fine. For 1 mark, there you go. Let's have a look at the next one. Part C says, Alex picks 1 card from each set. What is the probability that the score is 14? Oh, let's go back to the table. So I can only see 114. Let me just double check. Yep, there's only 114 out of, how many outcomes were there? Well, there were 4 by 4. So you should have 16 outcomes in total. Yep. So only 1 out of 16 should be your answer. So let's write that here. Yeah, and just leave it as a fraction. You don't need to change it to a decimal or anything. When it's talking about probability, obviously you have to give your answer either as a fraction or as a decimal. Most likely as a fraction. And just leave it like that. There you go. Yeah, there's no working out for that. You just have a look at your table, see how many 14s there are out of the total, and you get your answer. Well, let's move on to the next one. Question 8. Abby has a mirror in the shape of a rectangle with a semicircle on one of the shorter edges. The radius of the semicircle is 30 centimeters, and the longer edge of the rectangle is 85 centimeters. Yep, we can see that. Abby buys a 500 centimeter length of mirror trim to go around all the edges of the mirror. She thinks she will use more than 2/3 of the length of the mirror trim. Is Abby correct? Show why you think this. 6 marks. Wow, it's a lot of marks. Yeah, usually this type of question is to do with shapes. Obviously, it's to do with semicircles as well. You know, these type of questions are usually quite a lot of marks in the exam. So obviously, it's to do with the semicircle. In this case, you know, there's only 2 formulas that you need to know for semicircles or circles. So if you have circumference, then that is cherry pies delicious. Or if it's to do with area, apple pies are 2. Yep, so those are the 2 formulas that you might need for this question. Obviously, depending on the question, most likely it's not going to be both. It's going to be one of these. And you just have to look for the clues in the question to tell you, is it to do with circumference or is it to do with area? That's what you should ask yourself first before you attempt this question. And here's the big clue. The mirror trim is going to go around all the edges of the mirror. So that goes all the way around. That is definitely to do with the perimeter. Or in this case, if it's to do with the circle or semicircle, that will be to do with circumference. So definitely cherry pie is delicious. That's the one we're going to use. And because it's a semicircle, we might need to halve our answer as well. In fact, we will have to halve it. So let's work out. Let's in fact work out. I'll do it here. Let's work out the length of the semicircle here. So semicircle is circumference. Cherry pie is delicious. That's if it was a full circle. But obviously because we've got a semicircle, we're going to have to halve it. And let's use 3.14 for pi. D is your diameter. Well, if that's 30, that must be 60 all the way across. In fact, what I'll do, I'll put it here as well on the diagram. And I would recommend doing this in the real exam as well. You know, do draw on your diagram, do label things. That's 60 centimeters for that edge, which is the same as the diameter. And we have to halve our answer. So on the calculator, 3.14 times 60 divided by 2. And you should get 94.2. And that's going to be just centimeters, because obviously it's just to do with the length of the outside of the semicircle. Nothing to do with area. So there's the semicircle done. And now we need to go all the way around this shape so that we get the total perimeter of this shape. So I need to add to the 94.2, I need to add this length here as well, which will be 85 centimeters. We'll have to add the 60 along the bottom and 85 along the left hand side as well. Don't be tempted to include the inside. Remember, we're not including anything in the inside, so we're not including this length here. Obviously, it's just the outside, so just be careful. That's a very common mistake with this question. So let me work this out. So this will be total perimeter equals 94.2 plus 85 on the right hand side, 60 along the bottom, and 85 on the left hand side. Yep, so 94.2 plus 85 plus 60 plus 85, and you should get 324.2, and that's going to be centimeters. Yep, so that's the total length of the perimeter of the mirror. She thinks she will use more than 2/3 of the length of the mirror trim. Alright, so she buys 500 centimeters. So this is what she's got. 500 centimeters she's got. This is 324.2. This is what she needs. So can you see? We need to work out 2/3 of what she's got, because they said she thinks she will use more than 2/3 of the length of the mirror trim. So she's got 500 centimeters of the mirror trim. So we need to work out 2/3 of 500 and compare it with the 324.2. So let's work out 2/3 of 500. And again, you can use your calculator. We can do it bit by bit. I know a lot of people divide by 3 first and then times it by 2. It makes no difference. So you can do it all in one go on the calculator. 2 divided by 3 times by 500. And as a decimal, oh yeah, that's pretty good. We get pretty close to what she needed, 333.8. 3 recurring with a little dot. Don't forget the little dot above the this 3 here, because that's a recurring decimal, centimeters. So she thinks she will need more than 2/3 of the trim. No, that's not right. So that's less than 2/3. Yep, so she's got, or she needs less than 2/3 of the trim, not more than. So therefore that will be a no. So you can say 333.3 recurring is greater than 324.2, so no. Yep, there's your 6 marks. Doing all these little bits of working out. Obviously do show all of these little bits of working out as well. Obviously you need to show where you get your 94.2 centimeters. Work out your total perimeter, work out 2/3 of 500 and compare. And obviously we have to say no as well. Yep, that'll get you 6 marks. Hopefully you guys got the same as well. Let's move on to the next question. Question 9. Carl plots 3 points on a grid. So there's the 3 points. Okay. Part A says write down the coordinates of point P, which is right there. So hopefully you know, for coordinates you have to go, start from 0, 0 obviously. You go across the corridor and then in this case up the stairs. So you go from 0, 4 across and 6 up. So that would be 4 and a 6 in brackets. They've already put the brackets in for you. Yep, there's your first mark. Then it says Carl plots another point. He joins the 4 points to make a parallelogram. Write down a possible set of coordinates for the 4th point. Plot the point on the grid for 2 marks. So if it's a parallelogram, obviously all the sides have to be parallel. So I reckon there's 2 possible answers for this. The obvious one would be somewhere around here, but where exactly, because you have to be accurate, because all the sides have to be parallel. So the best way of doing this one is figuring out how many squares away this one is. So can you see this one on the left hand side? To go from this one on the right hand side, you'd have to go 1, 2, 3 across, 1 down. So from P you'd have to do the same. So if you go 3 across and 1 down, it should be exactly there, which is that coordinates right there. Yeah, you don't need to join up the crosses because we know it's going to be there anyway. And all you have to do is write down the coordinates of that. So that's the coordinates 7, 5 for your answer. Yeah, we'll have to put that in the answer box here. Yeah, that'll get you 2 marks for that part B as well. So 3 marks altogether for that one. So yeah, don't spend ages on this one. The other answer was, if you wanna know, just out of interest, I'll show you guys. There is another weird parallelogram somewhere down here. Let me see. Try and work it out. So what you'd have to do is to go from this point P to this one, you go 2 across and 3 down. So same from this point here, 2 across, 3 down would be right here. Yeah, and that's another parallelogram. Looks a bit of a weird one, quite stretched, but yes, that would be another parallelogram. And obviously that's the coordinates 3 minus 1 for the other answer. Yep, so 2 possible answers. Obviously you pick the one that you prefer. You just need to give one answer and just move on to the next question. So there is actually another 3rd possible answer for this one. If you go from this point on the right hand side to the left, that is 1, 2, 3 to the left, 1 up. So if you do the same for P, 3 to the left, 1, 2, 3, 1 up, There is another possible answer there as well, so that will make another parallelogram. So that's the coordinates 1, 7 as well. Yep, so 3 possible answers. Obviously just pick the one that you prefer. Question 10. Andy and his brother set up eco cabins. It takes the two of them 6 days to set up one eco cabin. A friend starts working with them. How many days will 3 people take to set up one eco cabin for 3 marks? So when you get anything like this, you should always double check, is this going to be direct proportion or inverse proportion? So sometimes certain tasks or jobs could take longer than expected or could take shorter depending on the situation. So in this case, they said 2 people represents 6 days to make this cabin. Okay, so to make the same cabin, how many days will it take 3 people? So if you imagine, if it was just one person making this same cabin, always ask yourself, is that going to take you longer or is that going to take you shorter time? And in this case, obviously, if it's only one person doing the same job, that's going to take him longer to do that job. So instead of dividing by 2, obviously you do divide by 2 here on this side, you're going to have to multiply by 2 because it's going to be longer, not shorter. So this is actually an inverse proportion question. Yep, so you just have to watch out for these type of questions. So what you do to one side, you do the opposite to the other side. So in this case, 6 times 2, which is 12 days for one person. Obviously we want it for 3 people, because that's what it's asking for. So to get from 1 to 3, you would normally multiply by 3, but on this side we're going to have to divide by 3 because it's the opposite. Yep, because this is going to take us much quicker. So for 3 people, 12 divided by 3 is going to take them 4 days to complete. Yep, and it makes sense as well because more people means they'll do the job much faster than 2 people, which takes 6 days. So yeah, it does make sense. Definitely inverse proportion, and I would put 4 days here in the answer box. 3 marks in total for that. So obviously you get 2 marks for showing some kind of working out, something like this, and then obviously 1 mark for your answer. Let's move on to the next question. Question 11. Gavin is a car salesman. Table shows the number of cars he sold in 1 week. The cost of each car is £20,950. For every car Gavin sells, he earns 1.2% of the cost of the car in commission, a bonus of £50. Work out the median amount Gavin earned per day for this week for 5 marks. So first of all, hopefully you've noticed they're talking about the median amount. So obviously from the table, we need the median value. So we're going to have to put these in order first and find the median or the middle that way. A very common mistake with this one is a lot of people would try to multiply each of these by 20,950. That's the really long way of doing it. I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. Find the median first and then multiply by 20,950. Do it that way, because otherwise you'll be there forever. So let's find the median first. Let's put them in order. So obviously you've got 0, 1, another 1. There's 2 2s. And there's a 4. Okay, and then you just cross them off the list. Let me just do it in a different colour. From either end, work your way towards the middle, and you should get 2 in the middle obviously in this case 1 and 2, so we need the middle of them, and hopefully you know what's in between 1 and 2. Well, you could work out if you want to, but you should know it's 1.5. But the way to work it out, if you're not sure, again, let me do it in a different colour pen. If you add them together and halve it, so obviously that's 3 divided by 2, which is 1.5. Yeah, so that's the median, 1.5. So 1.5 cars, for example. Obviously you can't have half a car, but we're going to have to use that, because that is actually the median. So 1.5 times 20,950. This will give us the cost. 1.5 times 20,950. Let's do that on the calculator. So 1.5 times 20,950. That gives me, in pounds, 31,425 pounds. So that's the cost of the cars, or the median of the cars. So we're going to need 1.25% of the cost of the car in commission. So 1.25% of this. So we're going to need 1.25% of 31,425. So 1.25 divided by 100 times by 31425. That gives me a commission of £392.81. Okay, let's just double check the question again. And it says, for every car Gavin sells, he earns a bonus of £50. So remember, he sold, 1.5 cars. That was the median. So we have to do 1.5 times 50, because it was £50 per car he sold. Yeah, for a bonus of £50 for every car he sells. So we'll have to work this out separately. 1.5 times 50 gives you a bonus of £75. Obviously, don't forget, it is the median. And so the total cost, or the total commission he's going to get, total commission plus the bonus, is going to be £392.81 plus the £75 bonus. So let's add 392.81 plus 75 gives you £467.81. That should be your final answer. How much commission does he earn in that week? Yep, 5 marks for that. Well, let's move on to the next question. Question 12. Meninda is the manager of a restaurant. She wants to cover the floor of the restaurant with tiles. This is a plan of the floor of the restaurant. Okay, it looks a bit weird, especially with this thing sticking out. Meninda will buy the tiles in packs. Each pack covers an area of 0.945 meters squared. One pack of tiles costs £16.15. Tiles can be cut and joined. Work out total cost of packs of tiles Meninda will buy. 6 marks. So obviously you've hopefully noticed, obviously it's talking about area and it's talking about meters squared. So we need to work out the area inside. The tile's going to go all inside here. So we're going to have to split this shape, definitely. What I would do, I don't like this triangle thing here. So what you could do, you could split the shape inside, or you could work out the whole shape and just take away this missing area here. Which way am I going to do this? I'm going to do this. I'm going to complete the rectangle. You can do it completely different to me. It's absolutely fine, but we should still get the same answer. Let's call this the whole shape A, and let's call this triangle shape B. Okay, so I'm going to need the base, which is that, and the height of the triangle, which is technically this length here. That's going to give me 7.7 take away 4. 7.7 take away 4 is 3.7. So in fact, let me just write that down. 7.7 take away 4 equals 3.7 meters for the height of the triangle. Okay, let's work out the whole shape first. So I'm going to need the two big measurements here, which are 10.2 meters and 7.7. So these two, that's your length, and that's the width of the whole rectangle if it was a complete rectangle. So let me do that on the side here. So area of whole, obviously that's length times width, which is 10.2 times 7.7. What does that give me? 10.2 times 7.7. That gives me 78.54 meters squared. Remember, it's to do with area. Okay, well, let's work out. So that was for A, obviously. That was area A. In fact, let me change that to that's better, isn't it? And then area B, I'm going to write that here. Formula for area of B. Remember, it's a triangle, so hopefully you know that's base times by height, and you have to halve it. Don't forget to halve it, guys, otherwise it will be wrong. So base is 4.5. The height is 3.7. And we have to halve it. So 4.5 times 3.7 divided by 2 gives me 8.325 meters squared. So that's the area we don't want. So now we can do total area inside of my shape, 78.54. 78.54 take away this area that we don't want, 8.325, should leave me with the area that we need. So 78.54 take away 8.325. That gives me an area of 70.215 meters squared. So obviously, if you did it the other way, where you split the shape, and I'll show you that as well. I will show you how to do that, but it's pretty long, I think, because you have to split it here, and you'll have to split it here as well. So there's two bits of working out for that. That's why I didn't do it that way. With this way, if you do it this way, where you complete the rectangle, just take away the missing piece, there's only one step for that. You just take away the area that you don't need, and you get your area that you do need, you know, in one step, pretty much one step. So it is actually a quicker way of doing this one, especially if you're running out of time in the exam. I would definitely recommend doing it this way. So however you do the area, you should still get the same answer anyway, 70.215. Obviously, if you don't get this answer, do double check where you've gone wrong. So now we need to work out how many tiles she needs. So she's going to buy the tiles in packs. Each pack covers an area of 0.945 meters squared. So how many of these 0.945s go into 70.215? Let me just write this down. So this will give us number of packs. 70.215 divided by 0.945. Let's do that on the calculator. That gives me 74.3 74.3, and it goes on forever. I'll just write it there. I'll just leave it like this, 74.3 packs. So obviously you can't go to the shop and buy 0.3 of a pack, so 75 packs are needed. So how much was each pack? One pack of tiles cost £16.15. So we're going to have to do 75 times, what was it again? £16.15. And again, let's do that in the calculator. So 75 times 16.15. And that gives me an answer of, in pounds, £1,211 and 25 pence. Yeah, but obviously you do have to show this area. If you don't show this area, and by complete coincidence you get this answer here, the £1,211 25 pence, you know, that is just by chance, and you wouldn't get any, you'll get some marks obviously depending on your working, but you do have to show the 70.215 meters squared, definitely. Let me show you the other way of doing it, which is a bit long. I'll do it in a different colour pen. So let me just delete all this. What you're going to have to do is work out this section here, and you're going to have to split. Which way shall I do it? I'll split it this way. So you've got shape A, a shape B, and a shape C as well. See how much more complicated that is, you know. So I definitely wouldn't do it this way, but I will show you guys. So A is, you're gonna have to work it out, in fact. So this length here, from there to there, what is that? 10.2 take away 4.5. 10.2 take away 4.5 gives me 5.7 here. Yep, that's meters. Okay, so that's 5.7 times 7.7, which is 43.89 meters squared. For B, that'll be 4.5 times by 4, which is exactly 18 meters squared. And for C, again, I'm going to need this length here, which is the base, and that will be 10.2. No, actually that's the same as that, isn't it? 4.5, which is there. And I'm going to need this height here, which you're going to have to work out separately, which is 7.7 take away 4, 7.7 take away 4, which we said was 3.7. That goes there. So that's base times height, 4.5 times 3.7, and divided by 2, because it's a triangle. So 4.5 times 3.7 divided by 2. Yep, you do get 8.325 meters squared. So when you add these three together, this one, and this one, let me just double check on my calculator. 43.89 plus 18 plus 8.325. Do we get the same answer? Yes, we do. We do get 70.215, which was this answer here. See how much more complicated that is. I had 3 different shapes that I had to work out separately and then add them together. That was pretty long. Definitely took me longer that way. So I probably wouldn't recommend doing it that way. I would do it the original way, which I showed you guys. But hopefully that made sense. That was the last question, and I hope you found that useful. And if you did, don't forget to press the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I shall see you guys in the next video.